Firefighting in Canada this week is brought to you by Wildfires of Canada, a division of CVIS Incorporated, Canada's largest insurer of firefighters. In this edition of Fire TV, the upcoming wildfire season has been dominating the news headlines. We've rounded up a recap of what's happening across the country. As this year's wildfire season approaches, Canada is bracing itself for another wild year. Data from the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre shows that there are currently 150 active wildfires, with the majority of them burning in British Columbia and Alberta. Many of the fires from last year's record-breaking fire season are still burning this winter. Last year, more than 18.5 million hectares burned in 10 provinces and 2 territories. Both Alberta and BC are already ramping up operations, with Alberta declaring an early start to its wildfire season as BC funnels $10.6 billion in contingency funds towards the next 3 years. 1,000 people have already applied to join the BC wildfire team this year, as the province builds its roster of firefighters. It is also leasing additional aircraft and expanding ground fleet equipment to allow firefighters to conduct operations like aerial missions at night, enhancing capacity to fight wildfires around the clock. Nearly $16 million has been invested in pumps, fire camp equipment, safety gear, and medical and hygiene equipment to provide broader response capabilities. Other investments have been made in 2 mass water delivery systems that can be used for fire suppression and flood operations, and upgrades are being made to firefighting equipment and fire camp infrastructure. The Alberta government declared the early start due to low snowpacks and forecasts of dry weather, while large parts of the province are under severe or extreme drought, similar to BC. In late January, the Alberta Fire Chiefs Association published an open letter calling on the province to release its wildfire preparedness strategy ahead of the start to this year's wildfire season. AFCA President Fire Chief Randy Schroeder said there is a growing concern regarding the lack of communication of what the government's plan will be. There is also worry about the allocation of funds compared to previous years and what the plan is for recruitment and deployment of firefighters and equipment. So far, Alberta Forestry and Parks has requested extra funding for an additional 100 firefighters on top of the 900 personnel it already has. In Ontario, forest firefighters are demanding action from the Ford government to ensure they are better protected before the start of the fire season. Veteran forest firefighter Noah Friedman was at Queen's Park in Toronto earlier this week and said the province has so far disregarded forest firefighters' health and safety. The Ford government has not publicly responded to these statements. Researchers are recommending that Ontario and provincial fire management agencies should err on the side of caution and take preparedness measures and line up crews, but experts told CBC News it is tough to predict the wildfire forecast. This is because the factors increasing fire risk, like snow depth and moisture, are more complicated than whether or not it was a warm winter. In other wildfire news, a Quebec man who spouted wildfire and climate change conspiracy theories pleaded guilty in January to setting 14 fires himself, reported CBC News. And a Nova Scotia man was charged with lighting a fire last May, which grew to become one of the largest wildfires in the province's history. The Barrington Lake Fire burned 23,000 hectares, destroyed more than 200 structures, and forced the evacuation of more than 6,000 people. A police investigation into the Tantalon wildfire, which the Insurance Bureau of Canada said caused $165 million worth of insured damage, has determined there was no criminality involved, reported CBC News. In the far north, community wildfire protection plans are in the works across the Yukon, reported Yukon News. Whitehorse is the only community that will not get a plan since it already has its own wildfire risk reduction strategy in place. Wildfire staff and equipment in the Northwest Territories are being prepared for the upcoming season earlier than usual due to a significant number of fires burning from last year through the winter, Cabin Radio reported. Those plans include drone scanning in early spring and ground assessments. Thanks again to VFIS of Canada, a division of CVIS Incorporated, Canada's largest insurer of firefighters. Stay tuned for our next episode on Friday, March 15th.